right hand, please. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Sit down.
He may need to hold my hand, Mr. Stripling.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm not here to try to whitewash Hollywood. I'm not here to help swing a tar brush at it either. I want to stick to the facts as I see them. There are several points I'd like to make to this committee. The first one is this. A damaging impression of Hollywood has spread all over the country as a result of last week's hearings. You've had a lot of sensational testimony about Hollywood. From some of it, the public would get the idea that Hollywood is running over with communists and communism. I believe the impression which has gone out is the sort of scarehead stuff which is grossly unfair to a great American industry. It must own efforts. It has rejected subsidies and government assistance. It wants no handouts from government. All it asks is a fair shake and a chance to live and to grow and to serve its country without being unfairly condemned and crucified. I wind up my first point with a request of this committee. The damaging impression about Hollywood should be corrected. I urge your committee to do so in these public hearings. There is another damaging impression which should be corrected. 8 years which contain communist propaganda. Your committee has not made this list public. Until the list is made public, the industry stands condemned by unsupported generalizations, and we are denied the opportunity to refute these charges publicly. Again, I remind the committee that we have offered to put on a special showing of any or all of the pictures which stand accused so that you can see for yourselves what's in them. The contents of the pictures constitute the only proof. I've been advised by some persons to lay off from it. I've been told that if I mention it, I'd be playing into the hands of the communists. But nobody has a monopoly on the issue of free speech in this country. I'm not afraid of being right, even if that puts me in the wrong company. I've been for free speech ever since I first read the lives of great men in the past who fought and died for this principle, and that was in the grade school. There's nothing I can add with this hearing. I mean just this. You don't need to pass a law to choke off freedom or free speech or to seriously curtail it. Intimidation or coercion will do it just as well. You can't make good and honest motion pictures in an atmosphere of fear. I intend to use every influence at my command to keep the screen free. I don't propose that government shall tell the motion picture industry directly or by coercion what kind of pictures it ought to make. I am as wholeheartedly against that as I would be against dictating to the press or the radio or the book publishers or the magazines. One of the most in the American motion picture industry. To sum up this point, we insist on our right to decide what will or what will not go into our pictures. We are deeply conscious of the responsibility this freedom involves, and we have no intention to violate this trust by permitting subversive propaganda in our films. Now, my livelihood, his reputation, and his personal dignity. When just one man is falsely damned as a communist in an hour like this, when the red issue is at white heat, no one is safe. Gentlemen, I maintain that preservation of the rights of the individual is a proper duty for this committee on un-American activities. This country's entire tradition is based on the principle that the individual is a higher power than the state, that the state owes its authority to the individual and must treat him accordingly. Expose communism, but don't put any American who isn't a communist in the concentration camp of suspicion. We're not willing to give up our freedoms to save our freedoms. Revolutions plotted by frustrated intellectuals at cocktail parties won't get anywhere if we wipe out the potential source and cause of communism. The most effective way is to make democracy work for greater opportunity, for greater participation, for greater security for all of our people. The real breeding ground of communism is in the slums. It's everywhere where people haven't enough to eat or enough to wear through no fault of their own. Communism hunts misery, feeds on misery, and profits by it. Hungry for it today. It is true today it needs our wheat and our fuel to stave off hunger and to fight off cold. But hunger and cold, as they may be, men still hunger for freedom. We want to continue to practice and to export freedom. If we fortify our democracy to lick want, we'll lick communism, here and abroad. Communists can hang all the iron curtains they like, but they'll never be able to shut out the story of a land where free men walk without fear and live with abundance. I've been told that there were communists in Hollywood. I have been told that the Motion Picture Screenwriters Guild had communists, and therefore I went and talked to the Screenwriters Guild, and I laid it on the line to them. And I said to them... Just a moment,
Mr. Why did you go?
Because I had been told that there were communists in the Screenwriters Guild.
You had just been told that?
That's right.
You made no effort to determine whether they were there or not?
Mr. Stribling, I have no way of making any definite determination. Who's going to prove that a man's a communist?
I think this committee is going to prove it.
All right, sir, but I'm not this committee, Mr. Stribling.
I wouldn't be surprised from the statements you've been making the last few days. You've certainly attempted to run it.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I'd be glad to have you.
I told you we'd give you cooperation, and we have, Mr. Chairman. No member of this association or no one connected directly with it has ever appeared before you to ask for witnesses to be excused or to postpone this hearing. When I found out that one witness had asked, I immediately requested that he write you a letter and offer to appear. At no time have we refused to give Mr. Stripling information or to counsel with him. I think that I have given you every cooperation that you have asked for, Mr. Chairman.
Is that your answer?
I don't know of any time that you've asked for anything that I haven't given it to you.
That's your answer?
That's correct.
Go ahead, Mr.
Well, what is correct?
I was never asked to give you any minutes to my knowledge at any time. When you did ask, I showed them to you immediately.
Mr. Chairman?
I can distinctly recall having in my office...
Thoroughly understood when we employed Mr. Burns that Mr. Burns would not appear before any congressional committees, that he would be glad to advise and counsel us on the outside, but that he would not appear before congressional committees. And Mr. McNutt was selected.